welcome. We really do appreciate everybody attending our ROI Summit. Again, my name is Mike Cotoia. I'm the CEO of TechTarget. A little bit of background, I've been with the company for going on 19 years. So I started when I was 7. And prior to working at TechTarget, I worked in the enterprise IT space. I worked for EMC in the 90s, and then I worked for a reseller, a national reseller that focused on enterprise storage solutions. So one of the best parts of my job is actually this, not necessarily speaking in front of a group, but being with customers and being with our employees around the globe and really learning from you and learning from our own employees about what's going on in the market and being able to engage and get some feedback and hopefully have some good discussions. We value our customers. We value you. And we want to thank you for taking time out of your day. We know your day is busy. We know you have a lot on your plate. But spending 4 or 5 hours with us, thank you. And I think as we get into this, there's a couple things that we want to focus on. As Brent mentioned, it really is about the evolution of enterprise B2B marketing. Boy, things have changed. When we look back over the last 20 years and where we came from and where we are today, everything's talking about data and behavioral targeting and knowing what your customers and prospects need. And before, it was always a nice to have if you understood what your prospects or customers need. Now it's a must have. They expect you to know what drives them, what they're dealing with today. And if you don't, you're going to be in a little bit of trouble. And as Brent mentioned, I think one of the key takeaways is going to be listening to our customers, your peers. We have a lot of panelists. We have presenters. It's not going to be full of TechTarget tiers all day long. And I think it gives you a great opportunity to ask questions, to learn. And at the end of the day, we hope that you walk away with 1, 2, or 3, or several key takeaway points that you can implement in your day-to-day and in your marketing and your strategic efforts. So we'll kick this off. We were talking about, demographic versus behavioral targeting. And, as you can all probably tell, I'm not from London. I have a very thick Boston accent, so I will try to accommodate. But when we get into the regions, we want to make sure that we're providing some analogies and stories that might be relevant. And one of them is, we talk about the Six Nations rugby tournament right now. And we have on the left, we have a demographic targeting example. And if you were selling rugby tickets, on the demographics on this person on the left, this looks like a great target, right? He's male, 25 to 40 years old. He makes 100,000 pounds. He lives in, central London. You would think that would be a great target. But on the right, and I know this is a real person. She's here with Tracy. Where are you? Raise your hand. There she is in the back. Now you have Tracy, who she said not to share her name. Here's what her behavior is dictating, right? She searched on Wales versus England rugby. She's clicked on this type of banner, right? Six Nations banner. She read this article and she liked multiple posts from England rugby on Instagram. If you didn't know that activity, you would first default and say, this person on the left is my target. Now, when you take that to the enterprise B2B world, you take a look at persona targeting. And let's say I want to sell an enterprise UC solution. Again, on the persona base on our left, this person looks fantastic, right? The title, the role, the responsibility, the seniority. But the person on the right, based on their behavior, is doing a lot of the relevant things that if I, who would represent a UC vendor, would want to target, I would want to be very interested in this person. What did they search for? What did they download? What did they read? Is it relevant to unified communications? So it provides a starting point based on behavior, actual, real, and observed behavior. So at the end, we look at it and we say, people end up buying. It's not personas, right? So the goal that we try to work with all of our customers is, your jobs are very difficult. We're trying to eliminate some of the guessing and trying to bring some of the knowledge and what we know. So as you can see on the left, there's a lot of guessing in terms of gosh, based on that title or based on that role, I think it might be this. But when you can actually capture and leverage real and observed, what we call, activity, and we believe our marketing campaign this year is activity matters, okay? When you have that information, you go from guessing to knowing. And that's really important for all of our jobs. So let's bring this into behavioral targeting on the B2C space. Are you all familiar with these organizations, these companies? Okay, so you have, an HMV on the music world, right? You have Blockbuster. I remember several years ago, I'd go Friday nights, go get my Blockbuster videos, bring them back Wednesday, get my $3 late charge, and then you'd have, Maplin for electronics. We go back to all that persona and demographic targeting. I laugh because when I look at the electronics store, again, I'm a man about 50 years old. You'd think that I'd be the perfect person to go in there and, electronics. Everything that gets done electronically in my house is for my wife. I do not know how to turn screw a light bulb in. She's out there with the electrics, with the plumbing, with everything. She's an engineering background. And so these companies let change dictate their outcome. And that change happened with these organizations, Spotify, Netflix, Amazon. You don't see those previous companies around anymore because these companies right here know everything about you, and they make me as a consumer, it makes it very easy for me to consume and get information, whether it's music, whether it's anything on Amazon, whether it's a movie, or, we were out last night with some of the customers and they were talking about series on Netflix, and I'm writing all this down because I know what I'm going to download and power watch one weekend. So it's on my time, what I want, based on the intentions that I have. So if you dive a little deeper into Amazon, they're dominating this, right? They're winning because they understand our needs, and they respond to them in real time. So this is actually, this is not my profile. But this is somebody in our company that actually went in there, and, Josh, and, he may have been searching for, as you can see, humidifiers, and he's on the humidifier. He's getting launched in there. Now Amazon knows, and he knows at Amazon, it can be very easy for him to get that. And then they understand everything about us, our interests and needs. Over 300 million users tracked based on what they're researching, what they're going after, what they need that time. And then 35% of Amazon sales are generated through their recommendation engine. I think has everybody here used Amazon to buy and get something shipped? I do it all the time. And it's funny because, again, I don't mean to talk, my wife and I have these conversations, and I go to Amazon when I notice that I'm low on shaving cream, razor blades, razors, hair gel, toothpaste. So if I'm sitting there and I did it for this trip, I'm like, you know what? I need more toothpaste. So I thought I did. So I see toothpaste, and by the end of that order, I bought hair gel, deodorant, razor blades, razors. I did buy the toothpaste, and my wife came down the next day and she said, "Can I just show you something in our bathroom?" I went, "Oh, okay." She came over and she goes, "You get 14 tubes of toothpaste, you get 16 things of gel, and I go, "Wow, I thought I needed it." She goes, "Yeah, Amazon's got you." And I said, "God, they really do." But at that moment, I needed something. And then the other things that they knew about my behavior, they said, we know this guy's a target. We're going to make sure we serve him up everything else. And I bought it. It was great. It was in my house the next day. We need a new bathroom because I've overloaded it with inventory that we don't need. So when we talk about that, it's time that we take that B2C approach and it catches up in the enterprise B2B technology market. So as we talked about earlier, 76% of the B2B buyers expect you to know what they need, really, what their research and what their pain points are. 80% want you to interact with them in real time. Now, that might not always be with a phone call, but it's a mix. It's an integrated mix. It may be another piece of content that's relevant and it's recent to their most recent search. It could be a phone call, it could be a webinar, it could be a banner advertising. It's an integrated approach because B2B, enterprise B2B buyers, have different ways that they consume information, but they want information that's relevant to their current need or pain point now. And that is important, and that is the power of content, which we'll talk about in a little bit. So it's hard because you can no longer just rely on personas. Because if you do that, you're going to miss the game. You're going to miss the people who are part of the overall buying team that are actually engaged in downloading and researching things that you as vendors are trying to get in front of them and sell. So there were some stats. We said 70% of companies that missed their revenue goals have missed many of the buying team members because they're relying solely on personas. There's a 55% decline in email click-through rates, and 99% of cold calls do not turn into meetings. We also see a lot of shifts. We've seen this as an organization, and I'll give you a little bit of history regarding being able to identify the stakeholders, right? So there are more non-IT stakeholders. How many here are also trying to focus not only on the enterprise IT titles, but also line of business? Raising hands. Okay. There's more of a collaborative approach, right? There are hybrid roles out there. We're now seeing HR IT, security ops, DevOps. That's the bridge that's connecting the business with IT. And we have those folks in our business too, in our company. And that's important that we understand what are their needs. Because those titles weren't around 4 years ago. Those personas weren't around 4 or 5 years ago. And then we see executive and senior management relying on various teams to do the legwork. You know, I was talking to a customer yesterday, and he and I were, selling back in the 90s and early 2000s. Everybody here remembers the .com and Y2K. And I remember selling, and we'd be working with the CIO because we had a relationship with the CIO, and he or she would go out there and make this decision. We're going to do this, and we're going to do this. And he or she made that call at that time. And then, the calendar clicked to January 1st, 2000. The world was still around, and they had a lot of extra hardware and software and everything else that they acquired. 12 months later, the .com crash happened. People lost their jobs, companies went under. And one thing that came out of that, and we both agreed on, was that CIO is never going to make, in most cases, 99% of the cases, going to make the decision without dealing and relying on the rest of his buying team. Because they have to make sure that that technology that they buy is needed not only for today, but for 3 years down the road. And they want to make sure that he or she has buy-in from their entire buying team. Because there's a lot of smart people that you're selling to and that have to be influenced. This also happens for us. Again, we started our business. We just celebrated our 20th year anniversary. When we launched the business in 1999, what we saw in the market was general IT pubs. Most of them were in print. There was some online that addressed very high-level types of information. We thought there was a need in the market. There was a need for specialists and specialist-type content, where we would launch sites and communities around those specialist content. Our first site was Search 400 for the AS400 market. I'm sure many people in here know what that is, and there are many people that have no idea what that is. And then we launched Search Storage and Search Security and Search Networking because they were IT was transitioning, and we had specialists in the market that needed relevant, very topically focused information to help them do their jobs. Well, today that's also transitioning. There's a convergence in IT. So if you take a look at the first column, object-based storage, right? And does it improve data protection? If we were 20 years ago doing this, we'd be writing all about this on search storage, focusing on the storage admin, the backup admin, everything else. But when we look at our data today, what it tells us is there are 18% of the priority engine titles researching around object-based storage are security titles. So if I only went based on personas and titles, I would have missed 18% of that buying team. So you take that across, whether it's IoT or containerization, there are folks that are, based on their titles, may give a very different look, or you may not have a full understanding of what they're really researching. So capturing their behavior is the trump card. It's the foundation. It's the starting point. And it should be the continuation process. Our audience reflects today new buying team dynamics. So 199% growth in IT generalists. IT staff will become IT versatilists by 2021. So something that they are very good now at, and they know they're going to be easily able to transition to another solution or another project within the company. And then 75% more of the IT buying process, right, is done by senior IT collaborating with their peers. The line of business audience, 24% growth in the line of business audience that we've captured inside of TechTarget over the last 3 years. 35% of all new members last year were line of business. You know, I don't know if you saw, we made an announcement yesterday that we acquired 2 days ago, Data Science Central. Right, so we cover a lot of the data science through some of our sites, you know, search data management, search enterprise, artificial intelligence, but we saw a really rich community of about 200,000 data science, big data focused professionals who have line of business, have data titles, have IT titles that we felt would be a really good opportunity for us as an organization to provide to our customers that are really focusing on that data science. So you can see it's beyond the IT decision maker. 91% of managers rely on their team to do all this pre-purchase research. So they may not be engaging with you out of the gate, and they may spend 80 or 90% of their time researching online, but the challenge is they expect you to know what they need, even if you are not physically speaking with them, by understanding their behavior, their insights. Everything has transitioned from our time, when we want to sell something as a vendor, to their time, when they want to engage as a buyer. And that's important. So we want to make sure we can provide the insights to help you along and to help marketing and sales. Because marketing and sales needs to work together to understand how do I really not only build pipeline, but as Barry will tell you later, how to accelerate pipeline. How many people here have a named account list? Come on, don't be shy. Throw it up there, right? And can I ask you, how many people get that named account list from your sales organization? The same people. And they tell you, these are the accounts that I have to go after. This is it. This is all we care about. The other question is, in those named account lists, do they also tell you, I only want these titles, and marketing only focus on these titles? Yeah, everybody's nodding. We see it all the time. So I call this kind of a double whammy, right? So first of all, you have the select set of accounts. And when I talk to CMOs and CEOs and heads of marketing, they come back and they say, when everybody leaves the room, yeah, my sales leader gave me those names. When did they update it? I don't think it's ever been updated. I said, okay. So they give you a small piece of the pie to go after. And then they say, let's restrict that even more by we only want these titles in there. And we had a stat earlier that shows on average there's 7 members of the buying team that are involved in a purchase. And if you are fortunate enough to pick one of those titles, you're getting about 14% of those enterprise buying team members that you have to target. Makes your job pretty hard, right? But then you take it as a second double whammy. What about all these accounts outside of that bullseye? I always talk, when we're talking to customers, I say, gosh, all right, that's great. You have BMW on your list. They're not active today on, hyper-converged infrastructure. But GM and Ford are. You don't want those? Well, yeah, we do. Well, don't restrict your ability to get in front of these companies based on the activity that's relevant to you and what your company's trying to leverage and go after. And secondly, don't restrict it to a title, because that title may not be doing the research. That title may not even be involved, but there's a good shot that there are 25 other people inside of Ford or GM that you don't even have on your list that are actively looking at hyper-converged infrastructure content that I think I would want to prioritize and mobilize not only my marketing, but my sales efforts towards. So that's what we want to make sure that we really drive home. We've seen this throughout the market for many years. So we empower customers to take action on the first sign of buyer activity. So this example is, I sell HR technology software. And listen, we have an HR department, we have an IT department, we have a data department, we have software solutions that we have as an organization. So the salesperson may come back to you and say, I want to go after the HR manager. Well, I can tell you how it works in our company, and we might not be. Our HR manager and our HR department is not making the final technical decision. They'll come back and say, here's the SLA that I need, and here's the functionality that I need as a business, then I'm going to rely on my IT department, because a lot of these softwares integrate with a lot of these other solutions, and my HR department's not equipped to say what integrates with that. I don't need them to. We have the technology folks that can actually help them along and be partners in the business. If I'm a marketer, I have this timeline here of 4 months. Now, my HR manager may not become active until April. But if I spread it out and I didn't just focus on that title, I start getting in front of the IT administrator, the IT folks. They're in there in February starting to look at information. So I just picked up February, March, and part of April to help get engaged with one of the members of the buying team that can be a gateway into all the members of the buying team. And why is that relevant for IT vendors like yourself? Because you get in sooner. You dictate the value proposition. You don't want to be coming to the game late. You actually want to help that organization draft the RFP in your favor. And if you know more about the company and you engage sooner and you keep your competitors out until later, you can actually dictate and drive and have a better shot of driving better value, better quality, and you're not commoditizing your solution. So that's really, really relevant. And we help with B2B tech vendors win the Amazon way. We've been talking about this for 10 years. You know, you go in there, you do Google search, and for those of you who don't know about the company, I only have a couple more slides and I'll wrap it up. You know, at the foundation of our business, we're a publisher. We believe in content. We invest heavily in editorial and freelance and experts in the market. We employ over 170 full-time editors and have 600 contributors. And their job is very, very simple, very straightforward. Produce and publish the most relevant purpose-built content by technology initiative and cross-technology opportunities that other IT and enterprise decision makers can leverage while they're researching their upcoming projects. That is very relevant. What does that do for us and for you? It helps us dominate Google search. Hundreds of thousands of search terms. We are ranked on the page 1 of Google organically. We don't really pay for traffic. We just saw our stat, there's 17,000, you know, we're listed in 17,000 in Google snippet, the box at the beginning. 17,000 search terms that were in the snippet box, only around enterprise technology. That's our focus. So then people come to our sites, either they're members or they come to our sites through Google, they go in there and they have to then register. We believe in privacy. We've always believed in privacy and compliance. They have to fill out a registration form, they have to opt in, they have to provide consent. It's very clear that they are enabling us to have their data shared with not only TechTarget, but with our vendors. We have to list you as our partners, and we want to make sure that we're compliant on that. Then they enter a gateway of relevant information during their power alley of research. They do a Google search, they get in, they register, they get into our sites, and the sites, whether it's around unified communications, HCI, VDI, you name it, that's what they need now. They need the right information, and we monitor and tag and track every behavior. So they're looking at a white paper, case study, they're in a peer-to-peer conversation, they're looking at 37 articles across our editorial team. We have a really good idea about what's going on in that company. Trust the data when it's directly observed and captured. And then we actually get that into our vehicles to help empower sales and marketing become better data-driven sales and marketing organizations. So we uncover the activity that matters. So you can take a look at relevant buying behavior, from searching and researching all the way to clicking on your ads. We capture the quality signals, which we want to make sure that you understand. We believe in recency, we believe in relevancy, frequency, this is important. Somebody going to our site, clicking on one banner and then leaving for, a year, might not be that relevant, right? But you have somebody that is a power user, researcher on, again, you see by looking at content and clicking on banners and engaging, that's my 6 nations target, right? And higher engagement. These are the metrics that we see when you combine all of these, but everything starts on behavior. So, and the real buyers are actively looking to purchase your solutions today. Tony Smith, this is not a real person. This is GDPR. We got We got approval from Tracy earlier, but this is not really Tony Smith. We have no idea who this is. But here's all the information that we captured that we just summarized in the slide before. And then we look at this whole relevancy and frequency, right? Recency, I should say. And on the Y chart, you see that is all about the topic. If you get very specific on that, what we call relevancy, right? Somebody might be looking at cloud computing. Well, in our world, cloud computing is pretty broad. But if you go further up the slide where you see it says private cloud data security, where you're getting very, very specific and relevant to what the buyer or the researcher is looking at and what your content talks about. The more relevant and the more pinpoint accuracy on that, you see a 1.6 times conversion rate, improvement in your conversion rate around emails. It's 60% improvement. Now, if you take a look at the x-axis and all the way to the right, that's more recent. Somebody made an activity or downloaded something around UC, and I engaged with them sooner based on their recent behavior, I'm going to see a 5x improvement on email conversion. When you combine them and you nail it with relevancy and recency on the top right, you see a 12x improvement. Those are massive numbers. That's what we try to help with, the relevancy and the recency and the consistency. Okay, this will be my last slide on numbers because I'm not, I'm okay at numbers, but there are other things I'd rather talk about. So we did this test and campaign, and we started with, this whole behavioral targeting theory, and we went out there and we made $10,000 off 6,000, results that we compiled from our own thing. And so you can see we have this column that says active prospects and we have cold contacts. And out of the gate on the 10,000 dials, it's actually pretty close, right, at the end. But it really opens up. So we saw that, it takes 17 dials to get one active person to connect versus 18. So you don't think that that's a big deal. So out of the 10,000, if you do the math, there's 588 people that connected versus the 555. Then 35% of those active prospects accepted meetings versus 20% from the cold contact. So now you're seeing it spread open, okay? And then 95% of active prospects actually attended the confirmed appointment versus 90%. I actually think we're being very conservative on this because we've seen other stats, but we took the conservative approach. So now I'm at 196 meetings kept versus 100 meetings, and then 62% of the active meetings, right, generate opportunities versus 52%. So 122 versus 52, 2.5 times, 70 more deals. Let me ask you, how many people through your enterprise is your average deal size throughout a year? How many people are 50,000 or less, the average deal size? How many people are $100,000? Who's more than $100,000? Raise your hand, the average deal size. Okay, so a lot of you. So if it's $200,000, I'm sure there are $1 million solutions. I'm not trying to undervalue it, right? Over 70 deals, that's $14 million in revenue. Over 3 years, it's $42 million in revenue because you got in there sooner. You dealt with the active prospects, people who are engaged, and that becomes very significant. That's what your sales leaders and your executives would want to see. So those numbers are staggering. If this was a B2C and it was Mike Cotoia buying shaving cream and it was only 70 people, not that exciting. When you're talking about $200,000 annual deals in reoccurring revenue, that becomes pretty damn material. So a couple more, I'll wrap it up. Again, the single marketing journey limits your ability to see and influence the buyer's journey. So again, you have Nancy up here, IT manager, she downloaded a white paper. That's great. But when you integrate it with not just content, but insights and specific branding and contextual aligned messaging throughout the buying journey, you actually find the architect, the sysadmin, you can go through everyone, the operations manager, the infrastructure manager, all the way to the VP of IT, and you've now captured the buyer's journey. You're in front of those buying teams on their terms when they're looking, when they have an interest, and you're providing them relevant information that they actually need. So my parting thoughts, and then I'll turn it over back to Brent, right? No, back to Colin, I'm sorry. You know, behavioral targeting has fundamentally changed the way B2C has done in their world. And it has absolutely changed the way enterprise B2B and the enterprise IT market is shifting. It's important to understand that because the foundation starts with real and observed behavior. Again, what I said earlier, activity does matter. You got to have the right activity. Again, there are many changes in the technology landscape. Targeting based on title or persona, it's challenging. You will miss a lot of the active buyers that end up influencing and generating that deal. And then a single channel marketing strategy is tough. Again, integrations is not because you hear the TechTarget rep saying, you got to integrate, you got to integrate, you got to integrate. It's the best practices that we see across our 1,400 customers that understand it's not on our terms anymore, it's on the buyer's terms. And we have to be there when they're there. And you got to have the right message. It's got to be relevant. It's got to be recent. It's got to be consistent. So with that, I'm going to turn this over to Colin. Thank you very much, and thank you for spending your day with us today and with your peers. Thank you.